And you mentioned Freddie Gruber, obviously a legend in drumming and in teaching. Can you talk about him a little bit more, and how did you connect with him?
How long do you have before the sun goes down there? I think it's pretty early in the day.
Yeah.
This might be the longest interview that you've ever done here.
Sure, I got time. We got time.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll change it to musicians off the record by the time I get done with this. The Freddie I knew very well. He was introduced to me by Terry Gibbs because my teacher for 4 years before Freddie Gruber was Nick Ceroli. I studied with Nick Ceroli when I was 16, 17, 18. He got the Tijuana Brass gig. Nick Ceroli became the drummer in the Tijuana Brass traveling band. Hal Blaine did most of the recordings up to that period. And so he was then, that was a huge band in that they were traveling, all the time on the road. So kind of my every week teacher, is gone. And so I wanted to continue to study and get more into the technical side of the instrument. Nick had great technique, but he was like an unbelievable musical player. One of probably the most underrated players of all time. If you're people watching aren't aware of Nick Ceroli, they should listen to Bob Florence's big band, anything they could listen to of Nick. Nick and Mel Lewis, who of course lived through his full life. Nick passed away in an early, at 40 years old, I think, of a heart attack. But he and Mel Lewis were in musicianship comparable. And so that he would be somebody that should be, learned about, as young students have to go back and learn about all the luminaries. But basically studying with Nick, and then when Nick left town, Terry introduced me to Freddie, who had just moved out here from New York and was just at the very beginning of his teaching career, if you will, on the West Coast, which was kind of the beginning of his teaching career. And he taught differently back in those days. He would take you as if you had never, even though he was teaching drummers who had played, who were players, he wasn't teaching, superstar professional drummers. He was teaching aspiring young drummers, and he would take you right back to the practice pad for 6 months. Wow. So, and you'd have to put up with that or move on, because he needed you to do what he wanted you to do. He wasn't molding you. He was trying to shape you. It was a little different process than he did in later years.
And what was that? What did you sort of that biggest takeaway or lesson that you learned from him, Don?
Well, obviously, teaching throughout all those years, he would take younger students who were more beginners, and that's kind of, that was part of the impetus of Drum Workshop at the beginning, and he would pass those on to myself or Danny Dennis, a couple of teachers we had at our little teaching studio. And it was his method of the way, not trying to show somebody what to play, but show them how to play it. And then you would go to study with, back in those days, if you could get together with Shelly Mann, or you could go to some of the luminary drummers who also taught, they would show you how to use your technique to play what they're playing. So it was a real, I think it was mainly the understanding that, and he used to say it over and over again, how, what, and why. You have to learn how to play, then you want to learn what to play, and then you need to learn why to play it. Mm-hmm. And great drummers understand all of those. Many, many drummers, even famous drummers, don't have all of those. They learn what to play, and it's a huge YouTube, we talk about it a lot on Drum Channel and forums recently. It's one of the downsides of YouTube. You can copy people and you can do covers, right, but you're never really learning how they played in order for them to create what they're doing. And so you can become a really good copy, which could probably land you a gig, but you're missing out on the foundation.